So we got trapped in the rain on the way to the cave. It's really pouring. So I apologize for the sound. It's a pretty small cave. I really can't escape it. There's a creek that runs through it. Really the main noise is that creek. So I'm just going to try to talk loud. Hope this works out okay. We'll see. So as we've gone through this, the book of Enoch, it's so incredibly important we go through the book of Enoch, because the book of Enoch is the best example of what it was like in the days of Noah. It just gives incredible detail into what that looked like. And we are told by Jesus to look out for those days, that's a sign of the end times, as it'll be like the days of Noah. And as we saw last time, there's this race of Nephilim who were taught by demons, their fathers, because they're part angel, part human. They were taught by their fathers how to work metals, how to craft weapons and shields and breastplates and armor, and how to then turn that into jewelry, how to manipulate precious stones and the value of precious stones. And they even get into like makeup, and it's all the things that people desire, and they became powerful because of that, primarily the weaponry and the knowledge of warfare that at the time, these were cavemen essentially, barely hunters and gatherers and farmers at best. You know, there was never warfare on the earth. There was obviously violence, but nobody ever picked up swords and shields, and let alone were giants and were led by angels. And they mutilated mankind, and they consumed mankind, they enslaved mankind, and whenever mankind could not keep up, they literally ate their flesh and drank their blood. And this is a picture of what it's going to be like in the end times. And we have to see that there's going to be this elite that seem to control everything. The militaries of the world, the food of the world, the luxury items of the world, the makeup, the cars, the jewelry, all that stuff that everybody seems to want. And it's going to come down to really, we're going to want food and water more than anything else. And they're going to be enslaving us, making us produce that stuff for them. So as we see that, we're just going to pick it up right there where their cries are being heard in heaven. All right, so we're going to go into chapter 8, starting at the end of verse 3. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said one to another, the earth made without inhabitant cries the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men, make their suit seem, bring our cause before the Most High. And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and God of ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all generations of the ages, and thy name holy and glorious and blessed unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou. And all things are naked, open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath brought all unrighteousness on the earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. All right, so I'm going to pause there real quick. So what's taking place here is much bloodshed is mankind is being devoured on the earth, and that bloodshed and their cries are being heard all the way up into heaven. And now there's essentially these four angels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, making a cause, essentially saying, God, this is not okay what's taking place here. And of course, God knows these things, and it's all in his perfect timing. Because he's waiting for that one who will deliver, which is, at this time, is going to be Noah. Now, I want to take a moment and talk about these cries up to heaven and what they mean to God, because they are extremely powerful, and it is those cries that brought destruction upon the entire planet. And if we go to Revelation 8:1, it says, "And he opened the seventh seal, and there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the seven angels who stand before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. And he was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne." Now, here's ultimately what's taking place in this moment. If you've gone through Revelation, there's a moment in time where everything just kind of stops. And it's right at that seventh seal. And the cries of the saints, which we talked about last time back in chapter 4 and 5, the same type of cries that we'll see in the end times, the same thing, because man will be being devoured in the end times, and he will be crying out to God, and God will hear it. And what he's saying here is those cries from the saints, he's loading this censer from the altar of God, not the altar of God down on earth, but the altar of God in the throne room of God, the altar of God. And he's taking the incense, and he's taking the prayers of the saints, and he's putting it in this censer. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar, and he was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended before God in the angel's hands. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So the seven angels who had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So ultimately, the prayers of the saints were taken to the altar of God. And there's fire burning there, and there's much incense. And he takes the censer and he loads it with much incense. And he loads it with the prayers of the saints, and he lights it on fire, and he throws it to the earth. And what you're going to see happening is these seven trumpets, they're brutal. They are brutal, and they are loaded with the gunpowder and the explosiveness of our prayers when we are in suffering. And that's something that we have to see, that when we cry out in suffering, it's not being unheard. Just like we saw, back in 6, cries the saints, "When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. They cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" And then this is that moment, and God loads it in a fireball, essentially. So we have to really begin to believe that when we are being persecuted, and we're being martyred and imprisoned and enslaved because of our faith, that God is loading a giant bomb with those prayers. And you have to know that to be true. It doesn't go unheard. It didn't go unheard back in Enoch's day, and it's definitely not going unheard in our day. So there you go. Any thoughts or insight, definitely put that below. I would like to take a moment and say, please consider being a patron of this channel. It greatly increases our ability to get content out, as YouTube kind of decreases our ability. That link is below. The most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. Never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. As always, love God, love your family, and love guns.